Creativity and variety in enemy designs isn't something that we see in every game, in spite of how important it tends to be, so when a game does excel in that area, you can't help but sit up and take notice. Thankfully, there have been more than a few of those over the years, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about, as we look through and highlight some games with memorable enemy designs. Silent Hill 2. This one almost picks itself, if we're being honest with you. Silent Hill as a series has a lot going for it, in spite of being deader than dead, and its enemy designs are right up there. The work of legendary artist Masahiro Ito has contributed to the creation of some of the most imaginative, horrifying, and recognizable horror creatures ever, and no amount of praise can ever be enough for the series on that front. Horizon Forbidden West. Another very easy and obvious pick. Horizon's central premise of fighting against mechanical monstrosities in a post-apocalyptic world is a fascinating one as it is, and made even better by the sheer creativity it exhibits in said mechanical monstrosities designs. Massive snakes, dinosaurs, flying beasts, aquatic monsters, you name it. Regardless of what they're based on, Horizon's machines are always a joy to look at, and even more of a joy to fight. Elden Ring. There aren't a lot of developers in the industry who are better at designing enemies than From Software, and unsurprisingly, that talent is on full display in Elden Ring. For fans of Souls games, this is almost unsurprising excellence, with everything from massive dragons to creepy hand spiders. Even if you have no interest in playing a game such as this one, you still can't help but appreciate its incredible enemy design. Bloodborne. As good as Elden Ring is with its design of its enemies, there's plenty of people out there who will argue that Bloodborne is still king, and it's not hard to see why. Unlike the dark fantasy aesthetic of Elden Ring and Souls, Bloodborne goes for a Lovecraftian gothic horror vibe, and that bleeds into its enemies as well. Horrifying and nightmarish entities are found in abundance in Yharnam, and each new one brings new dangers to deal with. For fans of the genre, it's a non-stop rollercoaster. Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is a singular, unforgettable experience that will always stand as a landmark achievement in the medium, and the design of its titular colossi plays a huge role in that. These massive and majestic beasts are the only enemies populating that entire desolate world, but each of them is an absolute marvel. Whether you're witnessing their gargantuan forms from a distance, or clinging onto their fur as you climb their bodies, every moment that one of these is in front of your eyes is hard to put out of memory. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Game Freak's talent for inventive and varied creature design speaks for itself, and has done for nearly 3 decades at this point. Each new generation of Pokemon games has brought with it memorable new Pokemon designs. But the one we're highlighting here is Gen 3, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. They delivered some of the best and coolest pocket monsters to date, from its annoying grunts to its iconic starters to its many legendaries. Whether or not Gen 3 is the best of the bunch is debatable, but it sure is up there. Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil as a series has always been known for its excellent monster design, as you'd expect from a successful horror franchise. After a bit of a blip with 2017's RE7, the series returned to form with the enemy designs and variety in last year's Resident Evil Village. From the Lycans in their many forms to Heisenberg's mutant machines to, of course, the big bosses themselves, every foe in the horror shooter was an absolute joy to take on in combat. Monster Hunter World. Enemy design is without a doubt the biggest strength of Capcom's Monster Hunter franchise. It's something that it's only gotten better at and better at over the years. And Monster Hunter World and its Iceborne expansion represent it at its very best in that area. From the game's first second to its very last, each enemy that it throws at you, whether they're packs of small and nimble foes or singular massive monstrosities, they exhibit the series' talent on that front in abundance. Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey is a game that is brimming with boundless creativity in every way possible, and that stands true for its enemies as well. Each kingdom is overflowing with a vast array of enemies to take on and, best of all, possess. Even if the game was limited only to the former, it would still deserve a place on this list. But being able to possess those enemies and then play as them with unique and unbelievably inventive mechanics just elevates the whole thing to another level. Dead Space. The USG Ishimura is a place that fans of the survival horror genre are incredibly fond of, and the horrifying creatures that roam its metallic halls are hugely responsible for that. From the first time you lay your eyes on a necromorph, right up until the credits roll, the game keeps hitting you with unforgettable foes. Each new kind of enemy, and there's no shortage of those, each new terrifying boss, all of them are so well designed and such a pleasure to fight, it's hard not to fall in love with the game. The Last of Us Part 2. Given how oversaturated the zombie space is, it's an accomplishment in and of itself that The Last of Us managed to do something new and instantly recognizable with its own brand of the undead. The Last of Us Part 2, meanwhile, came along and doubled down on that. Iconic foes like clickers and bloaters came back, of course, while we also got entirely new and incredible enemies with the likes of the Shamblers, the revamped and overhauled Stalkers, and of course, the monstrous Rat King. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a huge, sprawling game, but it's not size for size sake. All that real estate is put to excellent use thanks to great design and immersive environmental variety, and that variety extends to the foes that you fight as well. The game's spectacular bosses need no introduction at this point, but it's not just the bosses that impress. Each new area brings new enemies for you to fight that not only look different, but come with different abilities and movesets as well. And there's hardly ever one that the game misses the mark with. Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread might not be as huge and varied as the aforementioned Hollow Knight, but it stands tall in its own right too. It too exhibits great variety in the enemies it throws your way. From beginning to end, as you move from area to area, you're treated to both new and familiar foes, each of them an absolute treat to cross paths with and take on in combat. The bosses, of course, are similarly excellent as well. Remnant from the Ashes. Remnant from the Ashes is a massively underrated game, which is something that almost anyone who's played enough of it will tell you. One of its many strengths is its excellent enemies. That stands true for everything from its regular trash to the more challenging foes that it introduces bit by bit as it progresses further. Of course, in many challenging bosses. In this area, the experience remains on a constant upward trajectory from beginning to end. The Evil Within 2. There have been a lot of horror games in this feature, so it makes sense to sign off with another one. The first, The Evil Within, could just as easily have been placed on this list, but we decided to go with its sequel, which is bigger and better in almost every way possible. Some of the best, most terrifying enemies from the first game come back, while twisted new ones are introduced in abundance as well. The Evil Within 2 is brimming with classic monsters that fans of horrors can't help but to love. Did you know that we at Gaming Vault upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.